opening music. So I've nominated Amy to sing our opening music while you all press the share button and get this going.
Are you ready?
You ready? I'm ready.
They're gonna love it.
Okay, I'm ready. You ready?
Baby shark, dun, 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 mama shark, dun, dun. Wait, no, that's grandma shark.
That's grandma, because she has no teeth. That's
you know
mama.
What? While you guys are sharing this and logging in, again, we don't have our usual fun dance music. So see. Oh yeah, there we're back. We're back. So we're just gonna go with it.
Sorry about that. So, all right. So we have a lot for you tonight. Thank you for singing and doing our opening. Please, as you join, click the share button. If you're watching this on rewatch, make sure you comment and tell us what your thoughts are. So,
and I do want to say one more thing about Baby Shark, because did you know I thought that everybody knew this, but I found out my friend Sarah Kane, she's been on the show a couple times, and I mention her a lot because she gives me really good material.
She's like our third co-host that isn't here all the time.
Pretty much.
Like, every time we come up with a show topic, we're like, you know who would be the best guest? Sarah
Kane. Yeah, but she didn't know, so I don't know if you all don't know, but that song was a song when we were kids. Did you know that?
No.
It was totally a song when we were kids.
What was it? Like, it was the shark?
It was the same song. There just was no social media to make it go viral.
Oh.
I mean, and like now it's like done by a band, and like they made the song.
Well, have you seen there's like a Christmas shark and a Halloween shark, and like go to YouTube.
I haven't seen that.
Don't do it, actually.
But it's kind of like saying row, row, row your boat is new. It's not. If you don't know that song, I can't help you.
All right, so thanks so much for joining us. Tonight's show is a little bit on a serious note. We have had some fun shows. Our starters
Lots of fun shows.
But tonight is going to be a hard show, I think, a good show. We're going to tell some of our stories and be a little real. So we kind of just recap what we've covered in some of our other shows. We live in this time where we are a country that has everything, and we are so fortunate, and we have money and freedom and all these things, but also we have the highest suicide rate, the highest anxiety rate, the highest depression, all of that. And we've mentioned about comparison, and I feel like comparison really has a lot to do with today's mental health and where we are. I know personally, it took me a long time to come to my realization of my anxiety and my depression, because I was going through the storm. You sometimes don't want to tell somebody because you're worried at what their thoughts are, their opinions. You're constantly comparing yourself to someone of, I don't want them to think less of me. I don't want them to think I'm not enough. I don't want to feel shamed. I don't know what this feeling is. And we are not counselors. We have no psychological, but we're real. And we both have children. We both have suffered from anxiety probably our whole lives. We've been in and out of depression. And so tonight we kind of just want to come to you, tell you a little bit about what we've gone through, what we've experienced, and I want to open the conversation. So please feel free. We have our comments up right now. Feel free to make comments throughout this show. If you don't feel comfortable, it's okay. Feel free to message either of us, email us on our public email. We will put that in there so that we can continue to talk about this. But I'm excited to kind of hear where both of our anxiety came from, where we discovered it, how we deal with it, and all of that. So,
yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah. One of the reasons we kind of decided that this would be the week is because our producer's not here. Ha.
He doesn't like when we talk a lot of girly stuff.
Actually, he's totally cool with it. But we like to pick on him. But also, we didn't have all the fancy sound equipment tonight. We don't have all the things. All we have is our phone, and we do have a fancy tripod.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's got some like octopus legs. It can like hang anywhere. I'm pretty impressed.
So we picked a different location. So we are coming to you from my dining room this week instead of Danielle's.
Yeah.
So welcome to my home. We're really happy you're here. So again, please comment with whatever you're comfortable sharing in the comments, and we'll be watching that to interact with you guys here.
And feel free, if you don't feel comfortable commenting, because it is public, you are always welcome to message us. Again, we're not counselors, but we've been through a lot, and we are willing to talk to you and
we're
answer
not
any
counselors,
questions.
but we can be a friend.
Exactly. So,
yeah. So I think the first question that we should kind of go at is, when did we first realize that we struggled with anxiety / depression? I think,
let me start with kind of like,
first I want to ask you, I'm putting Danielle on the spot. Do you lean more on the anxiety side or the depression side, or both?
I am more anxiety.
Okay.
I definitely feel it's anxiety.
Because they're so related. And
they are. And that's something maybe we want to talk about too. Just to start off is, I really truly, in my opinion, don't feel like there's a true definition for what is anxiety. Different people have different levels. Different people maybe get anxious about different things and how they respond. And depression is not something to be taken lightly, but there's different levels of it. From postpartum to suicidal to just, mediocre, like right in the middle, still not yourself kind of thing. So we're only going to be really talking about kind of what we've experienced, what we've gone through, but don't think, like if you feel you're going through something but not sure what it is, don't think that, we're taking that lightly, because there is different definitions and different ways to look at it.
Yeah, definitely. So I will say I first, retrospectively, I was probably anxious and a little bit depressed my entire life. If you know me, you're going to be real surprised. Are you ready? I'm an overachiever. Confession, overachiever. Okay, not surprised. So,
not surprised.
But that's because when things are hard, I just put myself into action. And that's just, it's part of my coping mechanism, but it's also become a really great strength in my life, is that I can accomplish a lot and do those things, but those things are actually fueled by something that started as anxiety and depression. But when I really had this kind of eye-opening moment, season, I'll call it a season, was I had to transfer schools in college. I went to the University of Dayton for 3 years. Loved it there. I'm Dayton to my heart and soul. But just financial aid fell through. Things weren't jiving for me to go back for my senior year, so I transferred schools, finished up at BW in Berea and Baldwin Wallace, for those of you who aren't local, and lived at home for my last year. And I was working full-time to kind of try to make ends meet, and it was terrible. I really felt, it's interesting because Danielle and I both happen to be Christians, people of faith, and at the time, I knew that was what God wanted. I knew, with certainty, because there even became an opportunity for me to change my mind and go back to Dayton for my senior year, but I knew that, I was supposed to make this transition, and I knew that that's what I was supposed to do, but I still hated every second of it.
Yeah.
And I finally got to a point where I realized that every day I was waking up and my default was depressed. My default was sad. My default was, I literally cried every day.
Wow.
And I thought, my default shouldn't be sad.
Yeah, you should be achieving.
Your default should be joy, and then something makes your day bad, rather than the flip side of my default was sad and something had to make my day good. So it's kind of cool. I'm just a hopeless romantic, okay? It's kind of cool, the very same day I decided to go see a counselor at BW and take that step to admit that I needed someone else's help, was the same day I met my husband. So go to counseling, maybe you'll meet a man.
Maybe I should take that into account.
I'm just kidding. I also use humor to lighten the mood.
So my story is very different. I'm going to be real, like I said, this is going to be raw and real. So you're going to hear quite a bit about us. In about second grade, I kept having these what they said was behavior episodes, where I would just panic. And I grew up in a severely alcoholic home. My grandfathers were alcoholics, my uncles were alcoholics, my dad. So that was the lifestyle I grew up in. So I strived to get attention, and I was an overachiever, and I always needed to do to get the attention in the household. And so anyways, in second grade, they diagnosed me with ADD. And so I was put on a medication for that. At that time, they didn't have testing and all that for it. And they put me on this, and it did change the person I was. It calmed me down, but it didn't get rid of these I would have panic attacks, but at that time, they didn't understand what they were. So I was on this medication till like 8th grade, and still strived, like overachieved, and like needed, I worried about everything, and I needed to be the best. And if I wasn't the best at something, I would just like switch gears and do something else that I was the best at. So
I just didn't try unless I was going to be the best.
That's exactly. So like if I would
just
go,
being honest.
If I would go do something and I wasn't the best, I would do it. And I can tell you, I still unfortunately have this trait.
Me too.
But so in around
Truth.
9th grade, that's when they started to test, and they were like, guess what? Your daughter does not have ADD, and we've been treating her for all these years on this medication, and she doesn't have it. We think she has anxiety. So at that point, I went off of that medication, and I had the idea that I had anxiety, but you know, I would sometimes like flip out about certain things, but it wasn't an issue because I could get all these things done. Again, like you said, it fueled my achievements. So, you know, in college, I was working full time. I owned a house. I had all these achievements, and it impressed people. And I was like, this is what they didn't see, that I would have these like horrible mental like breakdowns at home. Nobody saw that. And so, to be honest, I don't think, you know, your anxiety led you to your husband.
That's just coincidence. That's not why.
I'm gonna go with that. At least it was a good thing.
No, it was good. It's just hopeless romantic.
I can tell you, you know, through my entire marriage, you know, I knew that I had anxiety, but I didn't know the severity of it until towards the end of it, when I realized, oh, this isn't just affecting me. This is affecting other people. For so long, people were like, oh, we love what you do. And so I think that they enabled it and allowed it. And so just recently, in the last year and a half, have I realized how much it played on my life, on people in my life, and people around me.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Whew. All right.
What else do we got?
So the next question that I have is, what did we do about it when we first made that realization? So with me, when I realized that what I was experiencing wasn't normal, I went and saw a counselor. And then I happen to be a psychology major.
Hey, wait, we said we weren't counselors or psychology people.
I'm not a licensed psychologist. I had a psychology bachelor's. It's not the same.
I operate on dogs.
But I at least, like, I understood people pretty well. I had already had my faith in Christ. And so I definitely had... So this is kind of going to lead into the topic of medication a little bit, and why I'm okay taking medicine, and that I'm an advocate for it.
Which I'm glad we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. So... I'd already had my faith in Christ. I already had a lot of knowledge about how the brain works and things like that from my psychology degree. But I still wasn't feeling myself, or whatever myself was supposed to be. Because honestly, I didn't know like what that was, because I had always kind of felt the same. And my counselor suggested, she's like, you know what, you have all the right thoughts. And I put that in quotes because I think that, well, I know that a common misconception for someone who's never experienced anxiety or depression is that, well, just think differently.
Yeah, just change it. If you're worried about it, stop worrying about it.
Just stop.
If someone, or the best line, if you tell me this, I will freak out. You need to just calm down.
Oh.
Just calm down. Ooh. Do not say that to me.
Yeah. But I think that, like, well, just stop is the line that always bothered me, because I'm like, but I can't, and I couldn't explain it. And so... what my counselor suggested to me was trying medicine, because she said with the way that I already had a maturity around my thoughts and I had positive outlooks on life in general, she suggested that I try medication, go on it for like 6 months to kind of do a reset with my brain.
Reset your brain. Mm-hmm.
So I reset it in the sense of kind of letting myself feel what it was like to have chemicals in the right balance, because it is a legit chemical,
it is a medical imbalance.
Scientific imbalance.
Yeah.
It's not fake. It's real.
You can't just change your thoughts.
Yeah. So that medicine gave my brain a chance to like feel properly. And then because I had the mature thinking and I could align those feelings, I just went on medicine for a season. And then I weaned myself off the medicine after a time because I was in a good season of life, and I wanted to have babies, and I didn't want to have medicine in me while being pregnant and doing all of that. And so I had my kids. I thought I was cool. I ended up getting postpartum, but I was still in denial that like I could handle it myself, that I could just stop feeling a certain way. And my doctor had told me many years prior, like, don't beat yourself up if years down the line you need to have medicine again to kind of do that reset.
Yeah.
So it was when my son was 3 years old, my oldest son, Nathan. They were 3 and 1. Now they're 9 and 7. They just had birthdays. It was when he was 3, and it dawned on me one day when I was like having a temper tantrum myself and just kind of exploded on the kids out of a lack of control of my temper. And it dawned on me that he was making memories.
Yeah.
That he was going to have one day, and he was going to be sitting in some group at 25 telling people how his mama messed him up. He still probably will. But
I was life skills, just so you know, I have the
yeah. So, but I realized he was making memories, and I'm like, I've got to do something about this. I have to get this under control. And so I decided I was going to go back to the doctor and get medicine again. And my husband Andrew was in support of that. I got medicine within 2 weeks. Andrew looked at me and he said, "Why did we not do this for the last 6 years?" He said, "I feel like I got my wife back, and I didn't know I lost her." Because it was such this like slow
that they miss it, and
it was such a slow transition to me being sad and grumpy and testy all the time, that the second we inserted the medicine back in, we were like, whoa.
And I feel also you make excuses along the way, and even people that love you, your husband, your parents, they make excuses. Oh, she's short-tempered because she's tired because of the kids, or she's this or this, she's that. So I think that's kind of why time can move a little quicker.
But all that to say, Danielle's had a different experience when it comes to medicine. So this show is all about sharing opinions of different sides. I think that it's something worth trying, and that it can make a incredible difference in your life. Like, I'm still on medicine, and my kids, so I've been on medicine again for 6 years.
Wow. And
I really don't plan on going off of it anytime soon, maybe ever. But not everybody is the same.
Yeah, so I had shared my story earlier that I was on this medication from going into 2nd grade to going into 9th grade. So that's a lot of years. I was put on a wrong medication that actually increased my anxiety. And so I don't take medicine. There has been a few times that I have gone and thought, I need to do this. And to be honest, after about a month and a half, I don't like the way that it makes me feel. I don't know if I have that perspective because there were so many years that I was wrong dosed that I feel like it's changing me. But I can tell you, I have to work extremely harder because I am in counseling full time. I do devotionals daily. I have to stay very committed to the Lord, so he doesn't make me crazy. And I still do lose it, but I feel like over the years between meditation and devotions and counseling and some amazing friends that'll be like, "Danielle, you're getting a little crazy," I have been able to learn the tools to control mine. Do I feel it would be easier with medication? Yes. Do I feel that people that do, I don't think there's anything wrong with you going that route.
Right, because there's a total stigma that it's weakness.
Yeah, no.
And I could argue, not in your case, but in some people's case, both sides, that sometimes people don't take medicine, not because they've had a bad experience or that they've tried it and it didn't work, but because they don't want to admit that medicine could solve the problem. So I think that there's kind of that, there's a pride issue on both sides, there's a weakness on both sides. So I was being weak when I was not accepting the help of the medication that could really do great things for me.
And to be honest, because the show is about being real, part of the reason I probably don't choose to take medication, because it would be a little easier. It's not the easy way out. It would be a little easier on me, is because I I like to have full control, which is a form of anxiety. I like to,
Oh, how's that for a, like...
Yeah, I like to have full control
Touché.
of what's going on in my body. And because I had so many years of wrongful diagnosis and wrongful medication that I felt like didn't have control then, so I'm like, I can fix this myself.
Yeah.
And people that are in my life daily, thank you, but I actually,
Welcome.
just last night, to tell a story, my daughter is not on, she was carrying a cage down the steps and she like dinged my freshly painted walls. So I just had a painter come in, do my hallways, do my office and everything. I had been fine all day and she dinged the wall and she came up with this bogus like story, which we all knew wasn't true, but she knew that I would be upset. And I did. Normally I would completely lash out, and I can tell you, like, I got a little angry and then I was like, I need a break. Like, so I have learned the tools to know I need to remove myself for the situation before because like you said, Nathan's making those memories. There were times where I would just lose it, and they were over small things. The wall is dinged. Yes, we just got it freshly painted, but nobody was hurt, and it can be fresh. But where I'm getting with that is, at that moment when that wall was dinged, it was like the end of the world to me. Like, it was like a huge, big, like, deal in my head. And I could feel the anxiety and I could feel all of that of going, oh my God. But then I needed to sit back and be like, it's just a dinged wall. Like, we can fix it and paint it. And so, you may be sitting there thinking, what the heck is wrong with me? Like, I don't worry about, big things. Usually it's the little things that get me going.
That is how I am. So that's a question. If you're commenting or if you're messaging us later, if it's like the anxiety, does it get you with the big things or the little things? Because it's funny. I don't worry about getting in a car crash. I don't worry, like, if Andrew's late from work, oh, he's probably down on the side of the road. Like,
there's different levels of anxiety.
Well, and just different types. Like, I don't worry about the big things. I actually don't worry. I wouldn't say I worry. I just get anxious when I feel like I'm losing control of the little things.
It's all control.
Yeah, and I've gotten to a point where I've kind of identified it as, if it's something I feel like I should have been able to do correctly, then I'm like disappointed and anxious. Like, if it was rational to think I could control it, then it kind of triggers my anxiety. And if it's something that I literally know, like, I can't help if like a train hits my car, I don't have anxiety over that because I can't do anything about it. But if I feel like I could have done something about it.
Yeah, and it goes back to kind of what I was saying about, like, comparison, as women in general, and I'm sure I can't speak for men, I know that there's some men on watching. I can't really speak for how you feel or where you're at. But as women, we do carry a lot of guilt and shame and comparison, and you see these beautiful families on Facebook. And this is something I struggle with right now with my current season. When you're posting those beautiful families and those kids, I should be thankful and happy that you have this great family. But I can't help but go, oh, I had that, and I had that comparison thing and that shame thing. And I think it's all rooted with anxiety. There's always going to be somebody more fit than you, somebody who has more money than you, someone who has a bigger house than you. There's always going to be someone better, but there's no one going to be like you. And I know in the moment you're like not thinking that, but that moment I'm always like, well, I can control this. I can get this. I can do this. And if I did this differently, this would have done different. And I don't get really worked up with those big things. I'm sharing this with Amy today and it made me feel a little crazy. The only big thing I get worked up about, and when I was Marco Poloing her today, my daughter was in the back seat and she's like, Mom, you do that? I didn't know. So I'm a big traveler. I travel 6 to 7 times a year.
Which, this is super sweet. Just spoiler alert. That's really cute.
Is it? Because I feel it's crazy.
Both.
So I work for 31, so I get to go on like at least 2 long trips, and then I do mini trips throughout the year. Every time I take a vacation without my children, which is most of them, I write them a note the night before. I write them this note saying goodbye to them and like all of this stuff. I sob the whole night before because
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, I do. I sob a little bit because one of my biggest anxieties is something happening to me and them not knowing that I loved them, or them thinking like I didn't say goodbye. So I do suffer from major traveling anxiety. Also, bless Crystal Barr, I don't know if she is on. She handles my dog sitting when I'm gone. That poor woman, she gets like 7 or 8 phone calls from me a day. Like, did the dogs go out? Did they go back in? How did they poop? Like, I mean, for real, this girl deserves to be paid extra when I travel. But, so I do have traveling anxiety, really bad. I leave the notes in a box, and I make sure safety deposit keys and all that stuff's ready. So I do think that I'm only gonna die when I travel, but...
Yeah, I don't worry about that. Mine's all in the little things, but I've learned, like, I'd like to talk next about kind of, like, how do we cope, how do we kind of manage these things. So medicine's just one way, and medicine, even, like, if you do take medicine, it doesn't solve all your problems. Just so you know, it's not, like...
I've never taken it long enough.
It solves a lot. It gives you, I would say that it gets you to a mental place where you can then solve your own problems.
Okay.
So I still get anxious just like any other normal person would, even though I'm on medicine. But I've just learned specifically between me and my husband to communicate about it in like overt ways. Like there's times like when we're traveling, I'm not anxious about dying, but I'm anxious about like, is your ID in your pocket so that it's fast when we get to the checkout line, and like who's holding which kids boarding pass.
None of that matters.
And like the efficiency of getting through the security line and stuff. And like Andrew will look at me like I'm being crazy. And sometimes I'll just be like, can you just humor me for the moment? Like, can you just humor me through this? But that's because we've been married almost 11 years now and dating for a couple years before that. And so we just are so open about it. He used to not really understand. So not to put my husband totally on the line here, but if anyone is watching that has a partner that is struggling with anxiety and you don't know how to handle it, I'll connect you to my husband. He can give you some advice.
He is awesome. He's awesome.
It's just been good. Like, we just got to a point where we could acknowledge it for what it was. And I can literally say to him, I know that I'm being irrational right now. I'm going to go take a break in my room. And that means the world to him. If I can just acknowledge it.
That communication is important, and I can tell you, you know, my ex-husband didn't understand my anxiety. He thought that I could control it. He didn't get it, and so that was a hard point.
Well,
for
and
all those years.
Not to give your ex-husband any credit, but just kidding.
Sorry.
But just that. The credit that is due is that if you haven't experienced it, you can't understand it.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I never put him down for that. I never expected him to. But where I was going with that is you may be watching and you're like, we fight about this, or my spouse doesn't get it. Find a friend that does. Because I can tell you, I have friends right now that, I'm telling you, back to that Marco Polo app, that I will start Marco Poloing and randomly, I had a 25-minute conversation with a friend, it wasn't you, but I won't mention who it is, about the hole in the wall at 1 a.m. last night.
I'm glad that wasn't me.
Because I was still upset that there was a hole in the wall, even though I knew in my head, as I'm complaining, that it could be patched and painted and all the things.
But you know what a step you took was that you lessened your response to your daughter.
My kids didn't see. Yeah.
And then you like had a trusted friend that you could kind of like vent and talk your feelings out to. I think that's important.
Make sure you have somebody like that. It may not be your spouse. If it is, wonderful.
Yeah, it might not be.
But if it's not, there are people. I'll listen to you on Marco Polo at 2 a.m. Go ahead, download me. But you do have to get it out. And that is a form. You know, I don't use medication, but I do... I don't like to say gossip, but I need to vent about it. I need to get it out. And a lot of times as I'm like going crazy about the silliest thing, I'm like, okay, I'm good now. Like I now can hear the person, like right after it happened, there was somebody at my house that said, well, just patch it and paint it, not a big deal. Well, when he said that, I was kind of like, I'm just going to listen to you and be quiet right now. But I hadn't processed that yet. I processed it at 1 a.m. after I did all my venting, and then I was like, oh, you're right. It's like a 2-second fix, not a big deal.
Yeah, which I want to touch on something you mentioned there, which isn't on our itinerary, so again, putting us on the spot, but the idea, you said, I don't mean to gossip, I just need to vent. And I think that our fear of gossip, first of all, that comes from a good spot. That comes from a good heart of like not wanting to gossip.
You know, and especially as Christian women, we're told, do not gossip, do not gossip.
But I think we take it to a serious level where then we don't trust anybody and we don't talk to anybody. And then that's when people get in really scary places. I am thankful that like my depression and anxiety has never gotten to a point of dangerous thoughts. Like I haven't experienced that. So if you're someone that has, I'm sorry. Like I can't fully relate to that. But I think that's one of the things that gets us there is feeling like that if we talk about it, we're gossiping, especially if that involves someone else. Because often like you're not usually anxious with, you weren't upset with the wall, you're upset with your daughter.
Well, I was. It should have took the hit better.
I mean, but like there's other situations where like you're upset with someone else.
And you don't want to talk about it. And I think that it is a way to look at it as, you know, I can tell you, I don't feel that, I think that I've gone through depression twice in my life. One, I had no idea what I was going through, and that was postpartum. That was right after my daughter was born, and I would like to go a little bit more into that. The second time was about 8 months ago. I then realized I was going through it, and at first I was like, I can't talk to anybody. I don't want to talk about them. I don't want to gossip. I also don't want people to judge. I have these 2 amazing, thriving businesses. I can't put it on my Facebook. They may think less of me. Like, I really had these feelings and these emotions going through me. And I, thank goodness, am part of an amazing women ministry group that was like, they knew it. They saw right through my fake act, and they knew that it was depression, and they were able to kind of talk to me and pull me through that. But I know that so many people do not have those networks.
Yeah, and I want to talk about, like, where are the appropriate places to share that? So I would say that gossiping is when you're telling everyone you come in contact to.
Yeah.
About the person that made you feel away and that. But like if you have a couple trusted friends, they're going to talk to you like a rational human being, a rational adult, and you're going just to those trusted friends and that's it, then I don't think that's gossiping. That's like working to process verbally. Like we're not all saints that can just process in our head by ourselves.
And Amy and I both are there's a lot of times we have conversations with each other and we're like asking questions to each other, but we don't even give each other the chance to ask them. We just continue to vent. And by the end of the conversation, I'm like, okay, I'm good.
I solved my own problem.
Like, I solved my own problems, but I needed to like say them. I needed to get there. I am a verbal processor.
Yeah.
So typically like the first 20 minutes of our conversation, especially if it's an argument, like, if you get in an argument with me, don't listen to me for the first 10 minutes because I don't even know my side at that point. Because I'm still processing. I'm still processing my feelings and my thoughts.
And I want to share, too, like, the idea of sharing on social media because you said, like, I shouldn't put this on Facebook. I think the reason that I share about my anxiety and depression on Facebook and social media now is because I'm at a place where it still exists. But I'm handling it, and I'm handling it in mature ways and in healthy ways. And I share in an effort to destigmatize the topic. Yeah. I share in an effort to help others and to be like, hey, I don't have it all. People think I have it all. Like, if you follow me on social media, my company just shut down last week. Like, these things happen. Like, these things are real.
And that's how this show even got started. Like, I don't know. I mean, from our first episode, if you watched it, I was part of the 330 network, and we were all hanging out, and I had began going through a divorce, and everyone was, like, so shocked, and they were like, oh my gosh, you guys are like the most best couple and the most beautiful family, and you have this and you have that, and I'm like, you have no idea that went on between those 4 walls.
And it's not that it would have been appropriate to share. Like, there's some things that shouldn't be shared.
Yeah, exactly. And most people do not know my situation and that, and I'm
in detail. Right.
I'm glad with that. I did not go around and tell them. But the point of the reason I'm sharing this now is, you can't judge somebody from their social media. I run a business that is 90% social media all across the country. People in California don't care what I'm doing. They want to know when their flamingo bag is getting delivered, and that's all they care
I
about.
have a flamingo bag.
Yeah, we have flamingos now, and campers are coming. We'll talk about that later. I'm really excited about our new line. So anyway, but what I'm saying is you see all this fluff on Facebook, and you see all these happy quotes and all of that. But then, on the flip side, if you're one of those people sharing the sad quotes or putting all your business on there, people are like, why are you sharing that on Facebook? Why are they sharing?
And you know what? I would say the people who are sharing, like, the stuff that maybe is a little over the line, because I share, and I probably cross the line of oversharing.
But you share your personal stuff.
And I also I never share it without also offering my life lesson that came with it.
Yeah, and that's important.
So I think, like, what I can't stand is when someone's like, it's been the worst day ever. I'm so depressed.
I am judging you if I see that. I'm so sorry.
But I can't tell you why.
What is that called? I think our producer's watching. There's sometimes he'll message me and be like, that was a post. I can't remember what he calls it.
Yeah.
But you're like pulling strings, like you're wanting people to go, why do you have such a bad day? And that's okay.
But when I see that, like, I care about that person. Like, I see it as like, gosh, like, they don't have anybody to talk to.
It is.
I'm sad for them. Like, and not like in a rude sad. I mean, like, I'm legit like, wow, like,
and
they must be lonely.
We're not saying that there's anything wrong with that. If you're on Facebook blasting people, yes, there's something wrong with that. But what we're saying is I wouldn't say anything's wrong with that, but also you can't judge me by my Facebook. I mean, and recently I have been posting a lot of more, I've been calling it the real, the raw, and the hope, like kind of like really showing
Yes, I love it.
What's going on and what's happening in a life lesson way. And I think that's important because maybe I wasn't being as authentic to everyone. People who saw me on my daily life knew. And that gives people that are on my Facebook that don't see me in my real life a misconception. And they're probably like, she doesn't suffer from anything. And oh, she's so lucky. I can't share what I'm going through.
Yeah, and I think by sharing those things, I love that, the real, the raw, and the hope. Like, by sharing things on that topic, it's just such a powerful platform, social media is. I know it's a bad rap, but I think it's so powerful, and it can be used for bad, and it can be used for good. I mean, this could be a whole episode on its own. But I like
trawling. That's what it was called, trawling.
Trawling,
our
fishing,
producer
begging attention.
Sometimes will send me. He hasn't in a while, but there was a month.
Trolling. Did he meant to say trolling?
No, it's trolling. So
not trawling.
There was
Danielle can't read.
There was like.
I'm just kidding.
What did I say? I don't know.
Trawling like a trolley.
Trawling. No. Moving on.
Moving on.
But what I'm saying is there is, and I'm not saying my posts are any better, but like I do. I put, this is what's going on in my life. This is what is real. Because even like when you suffer from anxiety, let's go back to that hole in the wall. At that time, I'm going, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. There's a hole in my wall. Like, that's like the raw of it. Like, I'm melting down. There's a hole in the wall. Da, da. The real is, there's a hole in the wall. It can be fixed. My hope in that situation would be, I can handle it. It's okay. My daughter learned a lesson. Do not carry something bigger than you down the steps. And mom won't rip your head off. So no, that's not right. But I mean, you have to categorize it in those sense. And that helps me. That's one of my tools that I use to control my anxiety is there's something I use very often when I get in an argument with someone. And sometimes I have to be reminded is I will often say, this is what I hear you saying. This is what I hear you saying. What are you saying? Like, this is what I feel you're saying. Because if you do suffer from anxiety or depression, you're hearing a totally different story sometimes than someone else is saying.
Yeah, you're running it through a filter of lies.
Yeah, which will then increase your anxiety even more because you're running that. I know personally I run it through, oh my gosh, am I not enough for this? Or, when are they going to find something better? Or, I should have done that better. They think I'm a failure. When they just might be like, I preferred the green wall over the blue wall. And I've had 15 conversations in my head about how horrible I am because I picked green. I'm only saying that because Amy has a blue wall here and I think it will look better green.
My living room is green.
No,
I'll take you on a tour.
Okay.
I won't take you on a tour. Yeah.
That's important. What's next? What else?
We covered a lot of our points. I think what we need to do is kind of land with if there's any other ways that we cope, which actually one that I did want to mention was, this is not always easy for me, but something that I work really hard at doing is believing the best in people. I think that when you come from a depressed, anxious state, you come from like a defensive point of view in life. But I try to, anytime I'm kind of confronted by somebody, and even like, you guys, it can be as simple as like, they didn't reply to my text for 3 hours. They hate me.
Yeah, you're
right?
worried of what people think. You're worried what they say. You're worried what they think
Right.
of you.
Yeah.
Who wrote it? Who wrote the line? This is my favorite quote. I think it was Bree Brown.
I don't know.
It said
Brene Brown.
No, it's Brene Brown. I call her Bree Brown.
She has
No,
a Netflix
it's
special.
Rachel. It's Rachel.
Rachel Hollis.
Other people's opinions are none of my business.
I love
Who
that
was
quote.
that?
That's Rachel,
Rachel?
Hollis.
Okay.
Hollis. I know I called her Hollins because you
I
always
call
do
her
that.
Rachel Hollins all the time. That's like
No,
her name. And
it's
Bree,
embarrassing.
it's Bree
Rachel-
Brown.
Oh my gosh.
I hope my counselor's
But
not
it
watching
is-
this because she's a huge believer of Bree Brown. What is it actually? Brene?
Brene. Yeah.
Well, Brene or Bree Brown and Rachel Hollins or
/ Hollis.
Hollis are wonderful people. But one of her quotes in her book is, and this I took very personally because it's something I truly struggle with. You could not even say something to me and you look at me funny and I'm already like, do you like me? Why don't you like me? There's even people in my life that I'm like, thank goodness you're not in my life anymore, but why don't you like me? Like,
Yeah.
I lose sleep over it.
I do too. I'm doing better, but like by literally telling myself to believe the best. Like, is it really rational that like they didn't reply to my text because they're angry at me, or is it more likely that they're in the middle of dinner?
And that's kind of the real and the raw. Like, you have to
Yeah.
talk yourself down.
Yeah, and just saying like, hey, I'm gonna assume the best until I've been proven that I shouldn't. So that's one of my coping things. Communication, just being open. Like, the more I talk about it, it destigmatizes it. I think when you have secrets, like, those secrets eat at you and they make you feel guilty. Because let me tell you, there's been times where, like, when I first decided to take medicine, I felt like the biggest failure in the world. Like, I'm making this sound like, oh, and then I went to my doctor and I got some medicine and it was great. No, I feel like the biggest failure. And the other times that I feel like the biggest failure is when I miss a day of my medicine and it throws everything off. Now, and it's not because I'm necessarily like, I mean, I'm dependent on it in a way, but it's more so like the withdrawal of it is worse than just not being on it.
Yeah.
And so I get so mad and so mad at myself. So I'm like, you should be able to control this. You should be different. Like, I start accusing myself
And tearing yourself up.
of so many things, and then that's just an ugly, ugly spiral. So we're just sharing this because this is a lot of what we talk about. I mentioned in our first episode, I have this tattoo on my arm. I don't know if you guys can all see it. When I look at it, is a less than sign. It reminds me that when my dreams or my hopes are separated from my realities and what I know, I can choose to fill this space between with my God or with my anxiety. And so this is my reminder that, like, I'm not dependent on anything but God, and He can help me through anything just by stopping and praying and resting.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at resting.
She's learning though. I get Marco Polo that you read a book the other day. I was like,
did until I fell asleep and took a nap.
So it's fine. You have a tattoo. I don't have any tattoos, but I wear 2 bracelets that are my biggest struggle. And one says you are enough, and the other one says I am worthy and I am loved. So 2 of my biggest triggers of anxiety is when I feel like I'm not enough and I didn't do it right, or I feel not loved. And that comes back, something I really wanted to touch on is we, this affects so many areas. We kind of talked about how it affects us wives. As daughters, growing up, I had an amazing mom. She took care of my needs and she was a great mom. And so I don't want to put her down in any sense in this, but growing up, like, I always felt I needed to do more and do more and do more, to kind of take the attention away from the alcoholic. Like, he was always getting the attention or the fights or the arguments or all of that. Like, I needed to do that. And so I was in like 15, and if you know me, this didn't change. I was in like 15 activities and running 20 things at one time because I never felt that I was worthy enough or deserved to be loved. And that was something I struggled with as a daughter. And, you know, I would like to go into kind of like our postpartum. Like, I feel like we both had kind of different stories with that. And most of mine I didn't really recognize, but as a mother, my anxiety affects my kids. My anxiety affects my parenting, and all of that in general.
And if there's shame about anxiety and depression at all, there's even more shame around postpartum, because I did not like being pregnant. I did not like having newborns. And that can be translated as I didn't love my kids, which is the biggest lie in the universe. I love my kids from the second they existed inside of me. I mean, I loved them, and obviously still do, with depth and with goodness. But I didn't always like it. I didn't always like them. Like, and not even them as a person. That's why, like, I really separate the idea of like and love, and I do that with even relationships.
And that's important.
It was hard, really hard, being a mom of a newborn for me. And part of it's because I chose not to be on medicine while doing that, and then obviously being pregnant, like, woo! Spikes all the feels.
All the feelings are there.
Spikes
all the things.
And so I definitely, like, I struggle with postpartum depression, and that's one of the reasons that I started Come with Audrey, was because I needed some more breaks from my kids. I remember one specific time, my mother-in-law lives close by enough that I was able to call on her, that I literally just needed a break from my screaming baby. I just needed a break. And I think that when we don't admit that we needed a break, that's when bad things happen. But I was just like, hey, can I come over and have a break? And she's like, absolutely. She's grandma and she lives 5 minutes away. Yes, bring your baby. And so I went over there and she held the baby, and I just went in another room.
And sometimes that's needed.
And that's needed. And that's even if you're not struggling with postpartum, sometimes that's needed.
Yeah.
But it's just very real. It's not shameful. And you should do something about it. You should talk to a friend.
Yeah. So my story is a little bit harder. I still struggle greatly with it. I'm already tearing up. Not many people know my story, but I have 2 children. I have Olivia and Carter. When Olivia she's 11, so when she was born, I was 22 years old. I was going to college full-time. I had accepted an amazing position as a lead surgical tech at a hospital. 22-year-olds don't get this. Like, I was so excited about all of this. And I loved being pregnant. I worked the day I delivered her. Like, I worked, it didn't interfere with anything is the reason why I think I loved it. Like, I was able, I know, everybody's hating me right now.
Control.
It was. There's my control
She's
again.
inside and she can't stop me from anything.
No, I'm working. I remember, I got off work at 10 a.m. and people were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm being induced tonight with my baby girl. So, I was excited. I wanted her. We planned her, like, everything. And then she was born. And I did not realize that it was postpartum until my son was born 4 years later. But when Olivia was born, I loved her, but I didn't connect with her. Like, I knew that she was there and I loved her, but I was still like, I gotta get back to work. So at I think I was 4 weeks, and I had her naturally. At 4 weeks, I was back to work, and then I took a salary position and was working 70 hours a week, and she went into full-time daycare, and I remember being like 4 or 5 months old, and, you know, I would go into work at 6 a.m., and her father would drop her off at daycare, and I would pick her up at 6 and go back to work, and I never held her. Like, I never... I loved her and I knew she was there. I want to keep saying that, but I wasn't one of those people that just held my baby for hours and gloated about her and all of that. And, at that time, there was some people that would be like, is that okay? Is that normal? Like, are you okay? And nobody went into depth about it. And I was like, oh yeah, she's taken care of. She had the nicest clothes and the greatest things. And I was working full time. And she had grandmas that lived around the corner. And she was in the top daycare center. Like, I thought that that's what I needed to do. And then 4 years later, I was in a different position in my life. I was a little more settled. I was out of college. I had Carter. And, it was different. I wanted to, hold him for and I remember with Olivia, I would cry, and everything was a struggle. Like, I nursed her, but she wouldn't latch, and all of these things, and everything was a struggle. And I was like, maybe I'm just not meant to be a mom. Maybe I'm meant to just be a business person, And then when I had Carter, I wanted to hold him all the time. Like, I couldn't leave. I would cry to go to work. And at that point, I was like, oh my gosh, do I love Carter more than I love Olivia? And this was something I really struggled with. Yeah. From 2 months to 6 months. And my son was born with a heart defect. And so we were in and out of the hospital, and I went, I beat myself up. Did I love him more because he was sick? Did I, I was very sick right after I had Olivia. Did I not connect to Olivia because did I think she made me? I had all these things, and that was the first time I went into counseling. And Carter was 2.5 months old, and they were like, we really think that you were going through severe postpartum with Olivia, and that you covered it up with work, which that's what I do. I cover everything up. But, it took me years, and still to this day, I'm teary-eyed because I don't ever want Olivia to think I love her less than Carter. I was in a different position in my life, and I emotionally wasn't stable, and I didn't know to go get help. I didn't have strong people in my life to be like, this isn't right. Something's wrong. You need to do something. When I had Carter, I was part of a church, and they were like, oh, this isn't okay. You need to do.
So what would you say to someone who's watching and is in that newborn phase and is feeling like they're just not connecting, they're just not jiving?
I would definitely go talk to somebody, because there were, I think there's a difference between, you had said, sometimes I just didn't like my kid. Guys, mine are 11 and 7.
I still don't always like my kids.
Mine are 11 and 7.
But it's different now.
And there are still days that I don't like them very much. There is a difference between days that you're like, this is a hard day. I just can't handle it. And then there's where you're day in, day out, they cry. And I remember, this still fills me with shame. I would stand at her crib and go, why is she crying? What is she doing? Why is she crying? I couldn't even bring myself to pick her up and to comfort her because I didn't have that. And so if you're and those things I blamed myself. I blamed that maybe I just wasn't a good mom. Maybe I just wasn't supposed to have kids. I made up all of these excuses and all these reasons. And I thought, well, I give her, she's got everything. I'm working for her. What else can I do? But if you're listening to this and you felt that in the past, I'm still healing and realizing these things and saying this story public. I think only 2 people in this world know that story.
Well, now a lot more than 2.
But the reason I'm sharing it is because I wish that somebody would have said something to me then. I wish somebody would have been like, you're a good mom, but something else is going on. Because I tore myself apart for 3 years going, do I just not like her? Am I a bad mom? Which then once you start, when you have anxiety and you start going, I'm a bad mom, I can't do it, I'm not enough, you then actually pull away more. And you get deeper in depression. So my advice, if you're feeling anything that you feel isn't okay, but you don't know why, go talk to somebody. There's amazing counselors that we can refer you to and all of that. And, your insurance company can, but there's even a lot of online free chats now. There's social media networks. There's so much out there. So sorry. Bless you. There's so much out there that can help walk you through and, just kind of be there. You need someone to talk to, and that's so very important. And so 11 years later, I realized where I was. I love both my children equally, and I still feel ashamed about it. And I don't know when I will get through that. I hope that I one day can forgive myself to a certain extent for even putting that much pressure on me. But you do have to forgive yourself and go seek something.
Well, and sorry, my voice is little. For that sneeze, I
took a lot out of you.
Yeah,
that baby shark.
Take a lot out of me. But
oh look, Crystal Bar's on. I talked about you at the beginning, how you should be paid triple, Crystal, when I travel because my anxiety is horrible. Yeah. She's so good though. She knows that my anxiety's high. So she'll come to my house and be like, I'm walking in your front door. And then she'll be like, the dogs are outside. The dogs are back. She's wonderful. You all need a friend like that. Sorry.
But I will say, just to offer a little bit of encouragement in this is, and this probably applies to you if you're watching or listening and you feel the same, but Danielle, I know Olivia, and I know she's just such a big heart and such a good kid and loves and adores you so much. You're harder on yourself than she's ever been on you.
Yeah. So. And that I appreciate you saying that, and that's something that many moms need to hear. I will always in the back of my head go, oh my gosh, did I screw her up because I didn't hold her enough?
We're all screwing our kids up.
Yeah, it's just how we're screwing up. You screw your kid up no matter what. That's what we're put here for.
Other than a couple people I could count on 2 fingers, maybe 3, is everyone's parents have screwed them up somehow. So yeah, you should just own it.
Yeah, you need to own your story and own your screwed upness.
Yeah.
I love it. We have a long comment. Do we want to read this?
I replied to her while you were talking. I wasn't just being rude and not listening to you. I was giving her some love, but just sharing that she learned so much about herself through her anxiety and depression. And I think that that's worth noting, that we, our trials, they make us new people.
They do.
And it's really cool things. A lot of the things that brought me, this is just happens to be the one I mentioned earlier. If I hadn't transferred schools, I wouldn't have met my husband, but transferring schools brought me to my greatest state of depression that led me to a counselor and seeking medication. So, I mean, the greatest things can come out of something that was ugly. I think we learn just so much about ourselves. And I'm in that season right now. I'd mentioned, if you follow me on social media, I'm an entrepreneur, and I had my own business, the co-founder of an app, for 4 years, and we had to announce a couple weeks ago that it's shutting down, and I knew that was coming for about 6 months. It was a surprise to everybody else on social media, but to me, I knew it was coming, and I had processed it, but there were ups and downs and really ugly days.
And it takes a lot to process that, and I do think, that's very true, because I feel we do learn the most out of our storms and our... So I can tell you, the last 7 to 8 months have probably, you say this often, but I probably have gone through one of the hardest times of my life, but I also learned the most. And one of the biggest things is I learned how to define my personal anxiety. Mine is definitely defined by fear. I mentioned growing up, I had that fear that I wasn't enough. I had a fear that I wasn't going to be loved. I had a fear of abandonment. I had a fear of all these things. Because of those fears, it made my anxiety higher. And I do think this isn't the whole reason. I feel like my anxiety played a huge role in the storm that I went through and the outcome of it. And so with that now, I'm living this life where I'm that fear and that anxiety got me nowhere. It actually put me in a position where all of the things I feared the most were done to me. And, there's going to be, I do think each person has a different level of anxiety, but once you can define it, once you can kind of category where you are and what your story is, it helps you to deal with it and have the tools to kind of process it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll learn so much about yourself. And maybe come out better on the other side. Because right now, I'm the happiest. I feel the most free. I feel the most confident in my skill sets and what I have to offer the professional world. And those things wouldn't exist unless I went through something really hard.
That's true.
Other things would exist if I went through something really easy, and that would have been nice too. But
not saying that I'm okay with the storms we go through. But you do, you know, and again, we've mentioned before, we are both Christians, and I do think that God places us through those storms to teach us what he needs us to know, that sometimes we're too stubborn to face on our own. You know, I feel that, like, if you're not working on it and not seeing it, sometimes a storm will put you right smack dab in the middle where you have to look in the mirror and see it.
And other times a storm might happen that God didn't desire for our lives. And you know what? He may not have desired that, but he can use it for his good in the end.
Yep. And we'll walk right through it with you.
Yeah. So we're so glad you guys joined us tonight. If you're watching this on replay, thank you. If you're listening to us on our podcast, awesome. If you want to talk about these things or would like access to resources of good counselors or anything like that, please send us a private message, and we will respond to that and help you out. So
we are both linked to this page as individuals, as well as we will put our email address in there. If you want to send an email and leave it anonymous, that's fine. Know that anything you send us will stay confidential. Like, we might discuss it with each other, but we will not post it or make it private or public. Private. We will make it private. Sorry.
We'll keep it private, and we'll just find the best way to help you.
All right. Sounds good. What's next week? Building an empire.
Yes. I'm excited about next week. Okay, so building an empire
can be a lot of things.
And that's what we're going to talk about. So,
do we want to give any of our details?
I'm going to give a little bit.
Okay.
You might assume it's like an empire, like finances and stuff, and that's probably going to be about 60% of the conversation. Yeah. Ways,
because that is important.
And different angles of that. It might be that you're saving really well, or you have a really high-paying job and you worked really hard to get it. Like, it could be a lot of different things. And we're going to talk about other things, like why is it important, like,
well, and also,
what are our kids learning by how we handle our finances, but then also what are other ways that we're building an empire? And I put it in quotes because it's not always financial. Like, sometimes it's about what we're building into our kids.
It's a sense of an empire because of what we're building in our children. And we're going to have two wonderful women who I respect and love. I'm so excited to have, that are in totally different positions in their lives, and that I feel like we're kind of in the middle of them. But one that works full-time in the corporate world and is a amazing woman that, you know, that's what she does, and she builds people's finances, and she does all these things. And then we have another woman who, she built her empire at home, and she's pretty awesome, and she's done amazing things and has great advice to bring to you on how you can make a little bit a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have both of them. So thanks so much for joining us tonight. Any closing thoughts that you have? I think we kind of went over a lot of what I wanted to. Yeah. So thanks for allowing us to come to you guys and just tell our stories. Know that we don't do this professionally. I wouldn't call this professionally.
Nope.
So we may not say the right things, but know that we're always going to come to you and be honest and give you our hearts, and that's how we'll respond as well. So, all right. Good night.
Good night.
We don't have Andrew to turn off our phone.
We don't have anyone to push the button, so I'll have to push it.
Is Scott on? We miss you.
Hey, Scott, we want tacos.
We keep telling our producer that he needs to bring us tacos.